Phraates IV ruled Parthia from 37 BCE as a dictator. Mark Antony's invasion, spurred by revenge for Cari, initially failed but later forced a Parthian retreat to Armenia. Internal Roman conflict allowed Phraates IV to counterattack and decisively defeat the Romans. Despite subsequent uprisings, he regained his throne with Saka support. Peace with Rome followed, until Emperor Augustus sent Musa, an Italian concubine, who bore Phraates IV a son, Phraates V. Musa and Phraates V later poisoned Phraates IV to claim power. Ruthless II, king of Iran, decided to abdicate the throne. This decision was also approved by the Mahestan Council. Ruthless II confirmed his successor and introduced his eldest son, Phraates IV, as the next king. In 37 BCE, Phraates IV ascended the throne and became the 14th king of the Arsacid dynasty. However, Phraates viewed his father's presence at court as a threat, therefore, he killed his own father to ensure there would be no interference with his reign. Phraates IV had 29 brothers, he showed no mercy to them either and killed each one to eliminate any potential threats to his rule. Following this, Phraates IV established a strict dictatorship and did not heed the Mahestan Council at all. He oppressed the nobles and courtiers greatly, and the people were exasperated by his actions. During this period, the Ptolemaic dynasty in Egypt also collapsed and came to an end. But what happened to the Ptolemaic dynasty? The Ptolemies had ruled Egypt for about 300 years. On the other side, before that, the Roman Republic had fallen. With the fall of the Roman Republic, the Roman Empire was established. The Roman Empire had three powerful men. One of these powerful men was named Mark Antony. He marched towards Egypt, and when he conquered Egypt, the Egyptian queen, Cleopatra VII, committed suicide. Mark Antony declared himself the ruler of Egypt, and the Egyptian Empire was annexed into the Roman Empire. On the other hand, in the Parthian Empire, Phraates IV was the king, and most of the oppression was in the royal court. The Parthian king greatly oppressed the nobles and the grandees. As a result, many of these grandees left Iran and sought refuge in the Roman Empire. One of these influential nobles was a man named Monzes. He even managed to meet with Mark Antony and told him, "If you intend to attack the Parthian territory and if you seek revenge, now is the best time, because the people and the courtiers are all fed up with Phraates." But why did the Romans want revenge on the Parthians, and why could someone easily go there and encourage a Roman commander to attack the Parthians? The story actually goes back to the Battle of Cari. After the Romans' defeat in this battle, they held a grudge against the Iranians. Many Romans were still prisoners of the Parthians, and most importantly, many of the official Roman standards had fallen into Parthian hands. The Parthians displayed these standards as a symbol of their success and victory over the Romans. Mark Antony welcomed Monzes's suggestions, organized his army, and prepared to attack Iran. Mark Antony intended to cross the Euphrates River and engage the Parthian forces from there, but he was informed that this area was not suitable at all since the Parthian forces were ready to defend it, and if an attack were launched from there, the Romans would likely face defeat. Mark Antony was looking for a region from which to attack the Parthians. Meanwhile, he received very good news from Armenia. The king of Armenia at that time was Artavasdes II, who also did not have a good relationship with the Parthians and Phraates. Artavestes II sent a message to Mark Antony, saying he would fully support the Roman forces and suggested that Antony take control of the Caucasus region and launch an expedition towards Iran from there, as the Parthian forces were not focused on the Caucasus and were more vulnerable in that area. Artavestes also provided 10,000 cavalry and infantry to Mark Antony to strengthen his forces for the attack on Iran. Mark Antony accepted, and his forces moved into the Caucasus. They planned for one group to attack from Armenia and another from Azerbaijan and the Takte-Soliman region to engage the Parthian forces. The first attack was launched from the Armenian region, but it resulted in a heavy defeat for the Romans, and the Parthians achieved a stunning victory, and many of Artavestes' troops, as well as Mark Antony's forces, were killed. The next attack took place a short distance from the Azerbaijan region, and in that attack, once again, Mark Antony and his forces suffered a very heavy defeat. Mark Antony realized that continuing this war would only result in more defeats and casualties for them, so he ordered a retreat. In just a few attacks, 5,000 Roman cavalry and infantry had lost their lives. Mark Antony and Artavestes of Armenia had underestimated the Caucasus region. The Parthian forces not only focused on the Caucasus but were also equipped and prepared to defend the borders of the Parthians. Although Mark Antony and his forces were still retreating, the Roman retreat was not without casualties. The Parthians continued to pursue the Romans, killing them where possible and capturing some as prisoners. Additionally, some of the Roman forces perished due to cold and hunger, and in the end, Mark Antony and a few of his companions managed to reach a safe area. Despite this defeat, Mark Antony was not ready to give up. He considered this defeat a humiliation and had spent a great deal to launch an attack on Iran until this point. It is true that the Roman Empire was governed by three powerful men at that time, but these three men had significant differences and were somewhat rivals to each other. They were all seeking to accomplish something great and gain superiority over the other two rivals, each pursuing their own individual power. Mark Antony had put all his efforts into Iran, aiming to both avenge the defeat at Kari and, if possible, to annex the Parthian Empire to the Roman Empire. Mark Antony re-equipped his forces, assembling a powerful army with a large number of soldiers, both cavalry and infantry, and prepared for the second wave of attack towards Iran. This time, Mark Antony directly raided Armenia without any negotiations with the Armenian king, feeling that the Armenian king had betrayed him in the previous battle. During a war, Mark Antony seized control of Armenia and then moved towards the Media region for his next assault. He engaged with the Parthian forces in the Media region, inflicting a heavy defeat on the Parthians and consequently occupying the Media region. After that, he ordered his forces to secure Armenia and the Media region by any means necessary and prevent them from falling into the hands of the Parthians again. Phraates IV, who could not tolerate this occupation, mobilized his forces and ordered them to quickly retake Armenia and Media from the Romans. The Parthian army set out, and intense clashes erupted between the forces of Mark Antony and those of Phraates IV in the Media region. In this battle, a great deal of blood was shed, but the Parthians, despite their efforts, could not remove the Media region from the grasp of the Romans. The Romans were determined not to lose Media and Armenia and fiercely resisted, while Phraates continued to send reinforcements to ensure that the Roman forces knew the area was not safe for them and remained unsettled until eventually leaving. These battles continued, and the Parthians did not achieve any particular success. Meanwhile, an event occurred within the Roman Empire that ultimately turned in favor of Phraates IV. During this time, there was a significant rift between Caesar Augustus, the Roman emperor, and Mark Antony, to the extent that Mark Antony's focus shifted towards internal matters within the Roman Empire. Eventually, Mark Antony and many of his troops abandoned Media and Armenia and returned to the Roman Empire. Phraates IV seized this ultimate opportunity and launched a devastating assault, inflicting a heavy defeat on the Roman forces in the Media region, with many of them being killed. Phraates showed no mercy to any of the Roman forces in the Media region, executing any he found. Eventually, many Romans surrendered, and the Media region fell completely into the hands of the Parthian forces. However, Phraates IV was not content with this. The Armenian region was still under Roman occupation, leading to the next battle for Phraates in Armenia. Phraates IV fought a very tough battle with the Roman forces in Armenia, resulting in a decisive victory for Phraates IV. The Roman forces in Armenia also suffered a severe defeat, with many of them being killed and the rest falling into Parthian captivity. Subsequently, sporadic skirmishes between the Romans and Iranians continued, with Phraates IV emerging victorious in all of them. However, in Iran and against Phraates IV's dictatorship, various popular groups emerged, seeking a revolution to overthrow Phraates IV's government. Eventually, a successful uprising led by a man named Tiridates took shape, supported by the people and many nobles. Feeling cornered, Phraates abandoned the throne and fled towards the region of the Sarkars. Thus, Tiridates assumed power, crowned himself in the capital, minted coins in his name, and became known as King Tiridates II. The army, nobles, and people of Iran did not oppose King Tiridates II's rule. He even took Phraates IV's son captive and asserted his authority. However, Phraates did not accept defeat easily. He formed an alliance with the Sarkars, bolstered his military might, and launched an attack towards the capital alongside them. A fierce battle ensued between Tiridates' and Phraates' forces. The outcome of this battle was a victory for Phraates IV, who reclaimed the throne once again. Tiridates realized he couldn't stay there any longer. He left the capital with Phraates' son, whom he had previously taken captive, and headed towards Syria, which was under the control of the Roman Empire. During that time, Caesar Augustus, the Roman emperor, was the target of Tiridates, aiming to use Roman forces to attack the Parthian territory. However, Augustus was not keen on war with the Parthians and preferred to resolve the issues through diplomacy rather than a bloody conflict. 7 years passed, and after 7 years of negotiations between Phraates IV and Augustus, an agreement was reached. Ultimately, Augustus agreed to free Phraates' son. Augustus told Phraates IV that he would release his son but would not hand over Tiridates. Phraates sought to punish Tiridates as well, but Augustus agreed only to return Phraates' son under certain conditions. One of Augustus's conditions was that Roman captives should be freed, and the Roman flags, which fell into the Arsacids' hands in the Battle of Gari, should be returned to the Romans. Phraates IV had previously been reluctant to do this, but after lengthy negotiations, he agreed to free the captives and return the flags to the Romans. On the other hand, Phraates' son was also freed and returned to Iran, and there was no further news of Tiridates. When the Roman flags were returned to the Roman Empire, Augustus ordered a national celebration. The people of the Roman Empire were engaged in festivities and rejoicing day and night, and they were so fond of Augustus that during these celebrations, they minted coins in the name of Augustus. In the year 20 BCE, Augustus sent an Italian concubine named Musa to the court of Phraates IV to get closer to the Parthian court. When this Italian girl entered the court, Phraates fell deeply in love with her and decided to marry this Italian concubine. This event happened, and as a result of this marriage, Musa became the queen of the Parthian Empire. According to historians, Phraates had 4 wives besides Musa, but Musa had a special position for Phraates. By fate, the result of this marriage was a son who became known as Phraates V. Many historians believe that the marriage of Phraates to Queen Musa was a political marriage because when the Romans could not overcome the Parthian forces on the battlefield, they decided to infiltrate Phraates' court using this young girl and obtain information about the Parthian royal court. Years passed, and this son grew up, and Queen Musa was very eager for her son to become the king of Iran instead of her husband. This Italian queen sought a way to sideline her husband in favor of her son, and she also desired the throne of Iran. Finally, in the year 2 BCE, Phraates V and his mother decided to eliminate Phraates. They poisoned Phraates one night, and as a result of this poisoning, in the same year, Phraates passed away. Phraates IV was the 14th king of the Arsacid dynasty, ruling for 35 years before being killed by his wife and son. His son, now known as Phraates V, ascended to the throne alongside his mother, Queen Musa, after his father's assassination. Today, coins featuring Phraates V and his mother are still in existence. With the death of Phraates IV, the era of instability and downfall of the Arsacid kingdom began. If you enjoyed this video, do not forget to like it, and share it with your friends. Do not hesitate to provide your view regarding this video by putting your comments below. Your comments would help us to improve our work, and also, they help us to take your views into account for the future topics that we select. Furthermore, you can subscribe to our channel to become aware of our new videos.